What I'd like to do now is invite our panelists to unmute and turn on their video so that we can see them all. And thank you guys and welcome. What I'd love to do is give each of you 2 minutes to introduce yourself and your relationship with HUN. And then, as I said at the outset, if families want to submit questions through the Q&A feature at the bottom, we're not using the chat feature, so it's that Q&A button, and go ahead and start throwing questions in whenever you have them, and then I'll throw them to our panel. So let me start with Dr. Talboy. Can I have you go first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Everybody can hear me, I trust. If you can give me a quick thumbs up to let me know. Any one of you can just give me a thank you, Ms. Kennedy. I am Dr. Thomas Talboy. I teach Latin and English in the middle school. I also coach basketball and debate. And the reason I particularly like our school is because, as Mr. Weinstein said, there's a great relationship among all of us. I like the camaraderie with my colleagues. I like the fact that students feel like they can come to us and talk to us. And I would say that this was particularly borne out recently because of the fact that we've gone virtual. The very first advisory meeting I had and the very first class I had, even though we're many miles apart, I could still sense the fact that we were all one together, because we rely on each other, we trust each other, and it made us feel like we're in a very comfortable place.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy, can I have you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Santiago Kennedy. I'm the middle school counselor. I'm the head of the CCC for the middle school, which is our Cultural Competency Committee. I coach basketball. I'm the head coach for the middle school girls basketball. And did I just say, oh, one of the heads of HUN Way, the program that Ken just talked about. And I also devise the advisory curriculum we use weekly. Oh, and one of the reasons I love HUN is I always tell people, other colleagues who are also teachers or work in schools, that there really hasn't been an idea that I've brought to HUN that I've been told I wasn't able to do. HUN's always looking for new and innovative projects and ideas and new ways to teach kids that are sometimes non-traditional. So I really appreciate the openness I have to try new things, as well as being, as Tom said, being close to, our students and faculty. I'm really feeling it with, unfortunately, our circumstances right now with the amount of emails I'm getting, because I'm just so used to stopping by someone's office or room or seeing a kid in the hallway and telling them, and now everything's done through email, and it's a lot. I really miss the close connection we have.
Thank you. Mr. Savino.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Savino. This is my 7th year at HUN and my 2nd week on Zoom. I teach 6th grade history and English. I'm also the humanities coordinator in the middle school, so I coordinate curriculum for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I coach soccer and baseball. I lived on campus for my first 5 years at HUN, which was a great experience. And the thing that I love about HUN and the community the most is definitely the relationships that I get to build inside and outside of the classroom. I get to see all the 6th graders, once or twice a day, and then I get to work with the same students on the soccer field or on the baseball field or in a club. And I really love the relationships that, develop, in different environments. I would say that the thing that's most difficult for me now is not seeing the students every day, right? Seeing them across the screen is great, but not getting to kind of interact with them in the classroom is something that I miss, and it reminds me, how important it is to be in an environment like HUN and to develop those relationships over time. So I'll be happy to be back in the fall or later in the spring or summer if possible, but really looking forward to that the most.
Thank you. So those are our 3 faculty representatives today. Our next panelist is both a current parent and a kind of a future parent, sort of, Jeff, kind of a little bit of both there. This is Jeff Iben, has 2 kids in the middle school this year and 1 coming next year. Jeff?
Thanks, Mr. Bristol. Yeah, my name is Jeff Iben. As Mr. Bristol said, I'm a parent of a current 8th grader who will be rising to 9th grade, and a 6th grader moving to 7th, and a 5th grader that We just signed the paperwork. We'll be going next year to Hun, so we're really excited about that. We were grateful to find Hun, more so than I can put into words. What I liked about it was the skills-based curriculum. I think about many of the things I do every day in what I do in work or at work, and many of those same skills are taught at Hun and are part of the curriculum and how they teach every day. I think it was Mr. Savino said on a video one time that content changes over time. Many of us don't remember what we learned in 6th grade in history class, but the learning skills and how to learn are really, really important in today's day and age. And I think that was important. And then one of the other things that I've been very happy with since we've joined Hun is just the partnership of each of the staff members with us to help our students progress. Each of them are very different, but they each need their own thing to progress. And I've really appreciated the partnership, and it truly is a partnership in helping them move forward.
Thank you. And our last two panelists are a couple of middle school students. First up is Avery Barrett. Avery?
Hi, I'm Avery Barrett. I'm an 8th grader at the Hun School of Princeton, and I play field hockey and lacrosse. And one of my favorite things about Hun is the environment, because it's such a comforting place to be, and everybody's so kind. Like, all the teachers care about all the students and make sure that they're succeeding. And all the students are great and responsible. And all around, Hun has made me a better student and also a better person.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jaime Langford. Jaime?
Hello, my name is Jaime Langford, and I'm in 8th grade as well as Avery. My favorite part about Hun is the positive and outgoing people that go to Hun. Like, all my friends and the faculty, stuff like that. They're just such nice people, and everyone around me, they care about you. The teachers want you to succeed, and it's a great community, I believe.
Thank you. All right. We've got some questions that have come in already. Thank you all for the introductions. Let me start with, I think a lot of people are very curious about how we're managing the current situation and distance learning and things like that. So maybe, Jaime, I'll start with you. Can you tell me kind of how you guys are handling your classes right now?
Sure, so I'll go over our schedule a little bit. So we have 4 classes each day. So 2 classes, advisory, then lunch, then the rest of the 2 classes. The first and last class are work module classes, where we have an assigned work period where we just do work. In the first and in the second and third class, we have live Zoom classes, which we're like taking notes or doing activities with the class.
Great. And maybe Mr. Savino, you could fill in from the faculty perspective. What are we trying to accomplish each day?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to add that in the 6th grade, I've definitely tinkered with the schedule a little bit. I love to check in with my students as regularly as possible. And so even during the work modules, we'll check in, we'll Zoom chat, we'll have a face-to-face. We've had a number of Harkness discussions throughout the year, not every day, but almost every day. That's something that's really carried over well to the Zoom classroom. Everyone gets to participate. There's some reading or some research that they can do outside of class, some notes that they can bring to the discussion. But using those notes, using that information to, try to answer a question or, just debate with your fellow classmates, I think that's a skill that, translates into all kinds of environments. And it's something that, I think is really easy to polish in the current environment. So that's something that we're really focusing on. From the teacher's perspective.
And Ms. Kennedy, my sense is we're doing more than just having academic classes every day, that we're still trying to keep community and activities going. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I have office hours twice in the cycle, in addition to always being available 2 to 3:15 every day. But I kind of just keep my Zoom up in case any kid, decides to pop in. They all have our perma links, but we have a 4-day cycle, and twice in that cycle, I have just off hours if kids want to stop by. And then we're being really intentional about the advisory activities we're doing, because as Mike said, we really love the time that we get to see the kids in person, and Tom touched on this too. So I'm trying to come up with as many advisory activities where they can interact with each other, and it's not, we're acknowledging the state we're in as far as, it's okay to be upset that we're stuck at home right now. Let's also do some fun things as a group together. So next week we'll be playing spoiler alert, Jamie and Avery will be playing Mafia, which is like a fun game that we've adapted to doing online and doing like at-home scavenger hunts. We're really trying to keep some sense of community, even if we're not physically together.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that, the advisory program, and that, especially that advisory class that we're having on Zoom, every other day, it's a really special time because it's a time when the students aren't being graded. There's no evaluation. They're not, trying to impress anyone, or, it's just a time when they can be genuine and kind of share how they're feeling. And it's a really nice time to just kind of, like I said, build those relationships and show, the students that, they're not just a number, right? They're, it's not, we don't just evaluate them based on their performance in class, but who they are as individuals. I think that's really important.
When you observe those advisory periods, you notice that what's really happening there is a continuation of the family environment that was created between September and spring break, when we were actually in physical rooms and advisors were working with their advisory families in a way that was, we say, making deposits in the bank, because in challenging times, it's when we need to make withdrawals. And for those kids to come together electronically and still maintain the kind of relationships that they had when they were physically in the building is really, really great to see. We also have a 15-minute all-school meeting every morning where we meet on Zoom. We don't do it webinar style, we actually do it meeting style. So 112 kids and about 20 faculty are all on Zoom at 8:45 every morning. We try to show a short inspirational video every morning. Just like our physical morning meetings in the building, it's student run. So while I might be the one showing the video, there are students out there who are running morning meeting. It's only 15 minutes, but it's a good way to start the day and to establish the boundary for the workday in the morning.
To the kids, and let me start with Avery. When did you come into Hun? What grade? And did you find it easy to be part of the community?
Yeah, so I came to Hun in 7th grade, and I found it very easy to be a part of the community because, so we started off, like the first day, we all met right in front of the middle school, and all the students, all the new students, and all like the students that were there in 6th grade were kind of like communicating, and all of the students from the year before that were introducing themselves to the new students. And then after a couple minutes of like talking and stuff, we all went off into our advisors for that, and into our advisories for that year. And I actually had Mr. Savino as my advisor, and he was very welcoming, and my advisor was so kind, and it was a great advisory, and I felt really welcomed, especially because we got our schedules and all that stuff, and everything was explained very well to me. So I felt very welcomed, and it was a great, great first day of school.
Jamie, how about for you?
Yes, so when I first came to Hunt, I was in 6th grade. I just moved from like an hour away, so I didn't know anyone in Princeton. But shortly I started like making friends, and one of the many like after school events, I started making some friends, and it just kind of went along from there. And my first advisor was Mr. Canuli. He's amazing. He's so fun, and it was really easy to like kind of get to know like the classmates, like what like type of people they were, like who the more like social people were, more the less social people like me. I kind of think I'm a more shy person, so I think it just went really well. I have some really good friends now. It's just an amazing community.
Now, Mr. Iben, you had 2 kids come in last year. They'd moved, sort of like Jamie, moved to the area. How was the transition for them?
Yeah, so we had moved from Ohio, I guess 4.5 years ago now. And we had been in some other schools, and we had been looking for a similar environment to the type of school our children went to in Ohio. When we found Hun, we were really excited about that. My daughter moved in 8th grade, so she was a new 8th grader, and my son started at 6th. So yeah, it was very different at first, but much to what Avery said, that you really started to meet students in the very first day, and then they had advisory. So within a week, or I guess it would be 2 weeks, my son was annoyingly happy. He would jump at the side of the car up and down about how happy he was to be at Hun, and my daughter was really excited too about the rigor and challenge that she got at Hun.
Dr. Talboy, can you talk a little bit about kind of your teaching in this new circumstance? How is it different from the way you would normally manage a class? Are you able to accomplish the same thing?
Sure. And before I go to the specific of how I do things differently, I do want to comment on the idea, sort of what Mr. Ivan is alluding to, but that's the fact that I actually have some experience teaching online in the online environment. And one of the things I really liked about the students I have here from Hun is I felt like when we published the new schedule and we met for the first time, they were ready to work. They were actually expecting us to have something for them to do. And I have some, colleagues from different times in the past that we have discussion groups, and some of the sort of quote unquote horror stories that I heard from them, students transitioning to the virtual world, were not functioning well. The teachers didn't know what to do and so on. I thought, wow, we are in a really good place here because our students want us to do what we're doing. And I would say they're also very, very kind about understanding that all of us are experiencing different ways the new virtual world. So, if they have a teacher who has a little trouble with their video or something, there's never any criticism. They're happy to help. In terms of how my things have changed, I actually am in a good position with Latin and English because we actually are doing 2 projects. That was our big thing during trimester 3. They do have to morph a little bit, but one in English is about Shakespeare, and typically we perform together. So one of the ways that we're doing that differently is that in the work modules that Jamie mentioned, their assignment is to practice the lines that they would be then performing in class, making a video recording of that, uploading it for me to see. And it's actually really turning into a fun thing because the fact that we get to watch each other and be able to criticize in a positive way, in a way that we don't necessarily get to in class. Plus the work modules allow us to have a little bit of extra time outside for them to kind of follow up on that. In Latin, the major project we have there is a food and cooking project. So Mr. Ivan, be ready for tasting some food at home, because the idea is that we end up with a cookbook. Now in the past, what we would do, of course, is we'd all taste it in class. We're not going to get to do that, but families are going to be invited to share their experience and their feedback on the food. But otherwise, any kind of real other change than that is just being able to check in with some of the kids who maybe need that little extra push to still stay committed. Most of them, I think, have already figured out, look, I need to be online, or I need to be in my work module. But it's kind of nice to just be able to send out a message and say, quick 5-minute Zoom meeting. I want to check in on all of you, see how things are going. And that's the biggest change, is just that. I can't walk down, as Ms. Kennedy said, I can't walk down the hallway, find the student I need and figure it out. But it's still very possible to do with our meetings.
I'm definitely missing the physical activity of sports as well. Having that at the end of the day from 2 to 3 is, that's a part of our daily schedule. And I think, all of us as teachers, we definitely see it as a way to teach outside of the classroom as well. So part of that relationship building is coaching. And so not being able to do that every day, it's, also, a nice release of energy and stress at the end of the day as well. But I'm certainly missing that and seeing my students in that environment.
If I could just add one more thing to that in relationship to that, typically during a Latin class, unless it's, something we're doing outside, let's say with trees or flowers or whatever, trying to identify the Latin names, we don't always go outside. We rely on the physical activity at the end of the day, like Mr. Savino said, but I'm finding myself really changing what I'm asking students to do. I have one who lives on the Hun campus, and I noticed that that student was always sort of in the same position. I said, you know what I want you to do for next time is I want you to go outside and I want you to find an oak tree, because Latin oak is quercus, and I want a picture of it. In other words, to get that physical activity, because I think some of them have expressed, we're here in our room all the time, we're not doing anything the same way. So I found myself creating much more active sort of assignments in that regard.
if I could just add one more thing, we've also added some virtual check-ins. I think, you know, as a counselor, we view kids a lot with their body mannerisms and different things like that. And unfortunately, we're not able to do that as well being virtual. So we have kids do a virtual check-in with their advisors every advisory period, which is every other day. And it has, you know, some fun gifts and different things in there, but it's all, you know, what are you doing for school today? But also, what are you doing for fun, to be active, to do some self-care? How are you feeling? Do you want to check in with me or Mr. Weinstein or Miss Anderson and different things like that, but trying to be creative. And also with the adjustment to Zoom, we're also, as a counseling department, so there's three other counselors in the upper school. And they are working a lot together on how to best support our teachers, because, you know, we're also everyone's in an unprecedented time. So of course our focus is always on the students and different things like that. We're also coming together to figure out how we support each other as faculty and teachers and staff, and what our best practice is for that. So that's something we're undergoing now, to make sure that everyone's just in a good mental health space.
Jamie, can you tell us about a typical day? What time do you get to school? What goes on during your day? What time do you get home?
So school starts at 8 and 8:20, 8:25, I believe, normally. I think, yeah, so 8:25 to 8:30, that's when we get in our classes. So classes are around 45 minutes. At normal school, we'd have two classes, a break, one more class, then lunch. Then we'd go to lunch, come back, then we'd have advisory, study support, or clubs. So we meet with clubs once a week on every Wednesday, I believe. And advisory is every Monday. We do like an activity, something like that, or, you know, advisory activity, stuff like that. And on study support days, you have around like a normal class period to see your teachers, catch up on work, or just relax with friends if you don't have anything, if you don't have any work and you're all caught up, study for tests, whatever you have to do. And then you have the next two periods after that. Then after those two periods, you go down to the athletic building, get into your sports clothes, athletic clothes, whatever. Then you go to your sport for another hour, then you're done for the day.
What time do you usually get home?
What time do I usually get home?
Yeah.
So at my father's house, usually around like 4 to 3:30, stuff like that. If I do go to extra help from 3 to 4, but at my mother's house, it's more of like a 45-minute drive, so like 5, something like that. But
all right, great.
Mm-hmm.
Avery, can you talk about some of the clubs and activities that are available and what you're particularly interested in?
Yeah, sure. So for clubs, there's a lot of different options. So there's Gardening and Meditation Club, which is a really fun club that I actually did it for the beginning of the year. And it was an awesome experience. Getting to garden and meditating was awesome too, because it calmed us down, especially with all the stress that was like happening. Like, cause I'm usually like a very stressful person. So it was like good for me to like be able to just like have a couple minutes to like calm myself down. And it was a really good experience. And also another club that I did before this whole Corona thing that I started was Culture Shock. And it's a very cool club because you learn about many different cultures and like what they eat and stuff. And you get to like eat some of the food and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting club to join. And there's a lot of other clubs such as like International Film Club. So you get to like watch films from like all around the world. There's Baseball Club. So you get to like learn about baseball. There was a golf club. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool clubs. Girls Who Code. So it's like it's a coding club for girls and stuff like that. And there's many more. There's a lot of interesting clubs.
Diversity Club.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there's Diversity Club too.
If you don't mind, Mr. Bissell, can I add here? Because I think the audience is parents too. So I drop the kids off around 8 o'clock. We live in Pennsylvania. I work in Princeton area. So I drop the kids off about 8 o'clock. And I like to pick them up around 4 or 4:15, but sometimes meetings keep me a little later. The kids are able to find, they go with their friends. They can go grab a snack. They can go over to Global. Sometimes they're down practicing lacrosse or basketball or what have you. So there's a lot of flexibility. There's adults around. They'll go to study support. Probably need to go there more. But there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do there.
And just following up, one of the questions on the board is can you talk a little bit about opportunities for parents' involvement other than being on admissions panels, which we've got you for, but what other ways can parents be involved in school?
Well, there's a parent group that I don't know what it's called because I'm not involved in it, but there is a parent group, much like the TPA or PTA at other schools. We also had a wine party the other night, a wine and cheese, virtual wine and cheese party, which was really good. And those happen periodically. There are other events around. I think there was some early in the year as well for us to meet parents, and then certainly interact with folks when you're at sporting events or what have you. So I think there's lots of different opportunities throughout the year.
Mr. Weinstein, a lot of times families are interested about course placement, particularly how do we figure out what math class a new student goes into, things like that.
Sure. So most kids who come to Hun are going to be placed in grade level math. However, we look really carefully at everybody's transcript from their previous school and the previous grade. And if it appears as though someone has moved ahead by 1 year or by one course, then we're going to reach out to the family. We're going to ask them to come in and take a placement test. And based on the results of that placement test, that student might move a year ahead. It's important to know that in mathematics, our math classes are not technically ability grouped, but there are consecutive courses. So if a student has completed the material successfully, demonstrated by the results on a placement test, and that course is on their transcript, of a previous year's math course, then we want them to be ahead by 1 year, and occasionally a kid ahead by 2 years. We are very willing to be flexible with our math placement, our math curriculum. This year I am teaching a 6th grader who is taking an 8th grade math course. We couldn't schedule it into her schedule, so she's doing one-on-ones with me. We were meeting 4 times a week when we were in the building, and we are meeting 2 times a week currently over Zoom and keeping pace easily with the 8th grade algebra class. Similar thing is true with French and Spanish, where some kids come into school with some prior knowledge. So we're going to want to investigate that and find out if we've got the right placement. Level A, which is typically for 6th graders, level B for 7th graders, level C for 8th graders. In Latin, it's unusual that kids come in with some Latin experience, but occasionally they do. And we certainly want to encourage kids to take a look at that as well. In all the other classes, there are really no placement issues because those are mixed ability groupings.
Avery and Jamie, if I were to ask you, what's the best thing about Hun and what do you think we should improve? What would you say? Avery?
I would say that the best thing about Hun is definitely the environment, like I mentioned, because it's like a very comforting place to be, and I always feel really happy like waking up and going there in the morning. And it's definitely like it definitely is a school that is very fun to like go to. And one thing you can improve, I mean, I can't really think of anything at the moment. To be honest, I can't really think of anything. So I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Jamie?
So my favorite thing about Hun, kind of what Avery said, like the environment, the community, like whenever I walk into school, like I have friends like hanging out in the lounge, stuff like that. I can talk to them. I can see my teachers, stuff like that. It's just, there's so much like stuff like you can like do like in a normal school day, which is just so like amazing. You can see your teachers, like you can hang out with your friends, stuff like that. There's so much like, what was I gonna say? There's just like not like stuff to do, but like so much like kind of character in the school, like so many great people, stuff like that. And one thing I would improve, I don't really know. I can't think of one off the top of my head, stuff like that.
Perfect answer. I'm conscious of the time here because I know for our guests who are watching this, your kids are gearing up for their sessions starting at 11 o'clock. So I want to give you a minute or two to make that transition with them, because you'll have to log off of this session and log into that one. For those that, just to clarify, we've got 2 different sessions coming at 11, one for 6th graders and another that's combined 7th and 8th. And so there's 2 different Zoom links. Make sure you log into the right one. And also, there was a link in the invitation we sent yesterday to an app called Heads Up. It's a game that the kids are going to play. And so if you want to download that before the session begins, that'll save you a couple of minutes as well. I want to thank our panelists this morning. You guys are great. I appreciate your warmth and your candor and your willingness to help me out on a Saturday morning in particular. Mr. Weinstein for hanging in there with some unique circumstances out in the woods. This is, as I said at the outset, this is who we are. We're a pretty authentic place, I think. It's a school that's very, very comfortable in our own skin. This was a very, very competitive admissions year for us. I would say the most competitive without question since I've been at Hun. Those of you, we've chosen you. We chose you for a reason. We think that you fit us perfectly. You'll make us a better school, and I think we'll have an incredible impression on you over your 7, 6, 5 years at Hun, whatever it turns out to be. It's been a pleasure getting to know all of you. We're really, really excited about getting next year started, hopefully in person and not virtually. We'll monitor the world around us as we always do and adjust as necessary. We know that in person is when we're at our best, but it won't deter us going forward. If we have to do work virtually, it's a school that's dedicated to the kids, and we're here for them and for you and to partner with you in bringing these kids forward and preparing them for the world ahead. So thanks everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your sessions with your future classmates, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have other questions or there's anything else we can do to be helpful. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone. Email us if you have
Bye.
any questions.
Bye.
Todd, thank you.